Hi, lit uppies. Happy Monday. It is Monday again. Oh my gosh, I'm super pumped for this live stream because I feel like it is going to be so good and so valuable. And I'm so excited to share it with you. Oh, and I just almost fell out of my chair. That would have been a great way to start this. So I'm so excited to talk to y'all about today's topic because this is something I talk with my one-on-one clients about a lot, but I feel like it's something that I maybe neglect talking about on a broader scale or in public, I guess is maybe how I want to say it. And my one-on-one clients are so served by this conversation. They love it. It gives them great perspective. And I think such a note to self that I should be talking about it publicly more because I know they get so much out of it. And so I had a great conversation with one of my clients recently, and she actually lovingly encouraged me, like, you need to be talking about this publicly. Like, this was so useful for me. Oh my goodness. And so totally up for that. Totally want to do it. I think I'm just used to having this conversation a lot. So I almost like forget like, hi, I need to be bringing it here versus just having it again, like on my private calls. So today I'm going to make this super juicy. I'm going to give you a real peek behind the scenes of my business model. We're going to talk about how I bet I actually generate less revenue than y'all think, but how I actually like really make bank and, you know, kind of like what are the different ways you can do that and you can look at your own business model. I think so often, hey, Diane, thank you for joining me. Hi, everyone. If you're here, say hi. I think so often that we think that there's like one business model in the service-based industry, right? It's basically like do a one-on-one service, make a course, scale the course, whatever, you know, group program kind of thing. Like we just see that such a narrow view of like what business models can look like. And I'm just so not into that. If you guys know me, I hate rules. I hate like one type of box you have to fit in. I'm so not into that in like business or any area in life, really. And so my goal with my clients and myself is always to be like, what fits you? How do we make this model work for you? How do we design you a business model that fits? So that's really what I've done with my business. And that's what I want to talk to y'all about is like how I've done that. I'm going to give you really specifically like what I'm making, what that looks like. And just ideally, you're going to walk away from this with like permission to do it your way instead of thinking that like the only way to success in this industry is this, because that's never true. And anytime you're thinking that, you're stunting your own growth. Hey, Rita, thank you for joining me. So let's get right on down to it. So I think this is the stuff that nobody's talking about. And what I want to say is that like, so I just want to like, I'm going to put some context around what I'm about to share. So I think the stuff that nobody is talking about is like, what is the difference between revenue and profit? Hey, and what's the difference between sales and cash, right? So like super basic business math, but like, let's just put some context around that. So a lot of people online are talking revenue, right? I made 100K in revenue, that kind of thing. I made 100K this year, this month, whatever. Most of the time, in fact, I would say basically almost all of the time, unless somebody's telling you different, which I will tell you today, people are talking revenue. So they're not talking about all that they spent to get there. They're just talking about what they generated. Does that make sense? Right? So they may have spent, you know, 80% of that to get to that number, right? So that's a huge portion of the conversation that's getting left out. Thank you, Diane. I'm so glad you love hearing that. Yeah, so that's a huge portion of the conversation that's getting left out. So I really want to have that conversation today because I work with a lot of clients that are making, you know, 5 figures plus a month, right? And a lot of them come to me really struggling with like, how do I actually make more cash from this versus like, how do I make more money? I mean, yes, they're trying to make more money, but what I mean is like, even at 5 figures a month, you can have a cash flow problem if you're not looking at profit and you're only paying attention to revenue, right? Rita says the only thing that differentiates a business from a hobby, according to the IRS, is profit, not revenue. 100%. I mean, you know, we got to take the IRS's opinion on that, right? But it's so true. It's so true. Like, I think there is a time in your business potentially where you're investing more than you're making, but those should be like very, very short like moments in time. I think what happens in this industry is we get so investment focused that we're always investing at the next level, but we're never reaping the rewards. And I think that's also a conversation that's not happening. It's like, when are you investing versus when are you reaping the rewards of your investment is super, super relevant. So again, just putting some context around this. Revenue versus profit, really important. So I probably generate less revenue than you think I do, but I probably make way more profit, right? So we're going to talk about that. Then we're talking sales versus cash, right? So a lot of people, when they're sharing numbers, they're talking sales. Like they're saying, I made 100K off this launch. What they're not telling you is that maybe that's getting paid out over 6-month payment plans, right? And again, like I'm not knocking that. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying context, which is like, what we think of is like, oh my God, if I just made 100K off a launch, holy shit, da, 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 like what would I do with it, right? But like the point is, yes, but like that's coming to you over a period of time potentially. So there, again, that's not wrong. Making 100K off a launch is freaking boss. Like that's amazing. But context is everything. So people are so hard on themselves. Like, how do I get there? How do I do that? But like, one, how long is it over? Is it cash versus sales? And two, how much are you spending to get there is such a freaking important question that like literally nobody is talking about in this industry enough. And what's happening is that it's making people spend way more, invest way more, and like think that they have to get to this magic number. But again, it's that thing I was talking about earlier, which is like we're always investing and never receiving. I've invested a shit ton of money in my business, so there's nothing wrong with it, but there has to be a point where you're profit focused, right? So let me kind of dive into my model a little bit. If you see me looking, it's just because I pulled some stuff because I wanted to be able to like give you guys really like accurate perspective. I have a very poor memory. Okay, so I'm going to use the month before last in my business. The reason I picked June is because that was a normal month for me. Like I didn't launch anything. Like Sarah and I have been launching Happy Magic. I have value centered sales that I launch. So I don't want to like get that confusing. Like this was a normal month. June was just like normal month. Like I sold intensives, I sold some coaching, that kind of thing. That's it. And it just is like good perspective. Let's see. Yes, I just talked about this, cash versus sales. Amen. So important. Awesome. Hey, Amy. Hey, Karen. Thank you guys for joining me. Okay, cool. So June. Revenue, but cash, right? So June, revenue, cash was about 36K, like a little bit over, but like let's round, right? So it's like 36K, right? So I think a lot of people would see me at this point in my coaching business and be like, gosh, I think she should be making more than like 36K a month. Like, well, shouldn't you be up to 50 or whatever, right? But 36K cash, so that's awesome. It wasn't sales. And I spend so like conservatively, let's say, on expenses. So that month I spent around 5K on expenses. And I actually think I rounded that up. I think it was like 4 something, like 4.7 something, right? So that means my profit was $31,000, right? Which is vastly different from like, potentially this could be true. And like, again, I want to be so clear that like, I'm not saying my business model is right. I just want to give you the perspective that there are so many ways to do this is sort of like what I'm after here, right? So this is not a case for why Lacey is the smartest business model on the internet. I don't necessarily. This is just a case for perspective. So I made $31,000 cash, right? Profit. Now, say I had done a 100K launch that month, I may end up around the same depending on how much I was spending on team, ads, copywriting, graphic design, website design, like course build out, membership site, like consults around my course, whatever, right? Just as an example. So this is the point, is that 100K revenue and 36K revenue can actually end up equaling a very similar profit. Does this make sense to everybody? Give me an emoji if it makes sense. Give me a question if it doesn't. I really want this to be like super simple, and I want to make sure this is like really relevant to you and you get it. But the point is, when we're looking at numbers, we're always kind of going to that, like, how do I get to like 6 figures? How do I get to like the 50K month? How do I get to whatever? But my question is always like, what are you willing to do and spend to get there? Does that make sense? So like, again, there's nothing wrong with 100K launch if that's what you love and that's where you thrive and that's how you like to operate and you love the launch vibes and you love being out there and selling in that way and you love running courses. I don't. Like, real talk, that's not for me. I don't. Juliana says totally makes sense. Thank you, girl. Like, I have clients that love to launch and I'm so in it with them and I love to be part of it. I love strategizing for it. But personally speaking, that isn't where I thrive the most. Like, if I had to plan out my ideal day, I'll take client calls over almost anything else. Hands down, 100% of the time, I love one-on-one client calls. So what I've had to do is figure out how to design a business model where my day looks how I want it to look. If my day looked like, strategizing my launch plan or working on client calls, and I don't even mean working, I just had a brain malfunction, y'all, or being on client calls, I'm picking client calls almost the whole time. I love strategizing for my clients, but again, it's just not what like lights me up. It's not an environment in which my personality personally thrives, is like the big launch thing. As you guys know, I can be a control freak. I feel like some of my life's work is detachment, right? So like that like container or environment is, again, not my personal brand of thriving, but I have clients who it is their personal brand of thriving. Like when we're in launch mode, I like literally feel them like turn on and light up. Like I have one client that we always joke about, like launch mode on, you know what I mean? Like she just like, ah, like it's her thing and it's totally cool. So this, again, is so not a case of like, my business model is better. It's a case of my business model is better for me, and that's why I profit a lot, and that's why I make it work, and that's why I'm designing it to fit me. Because if I took the traditional, like, this is how you scale in this business philosophy, I would burn out and be miserable. Like, I know that about myself. Like, if I was spending all day creating course content, I would not be happy. I think of myself way more as a coach than like a teacher. And I have clients that think of themselves way more as teacher and coach. And I think it's all on a continuum. But my point is, I need to design it so that I want to show up for it, right? Sarah says, same. Juliana, same. Love one-on-one. Yeah, it's like you just know if it's your thing, right? I would rather do client calls than spend a ton of time launching, promoting. Yeah, like it's cool because you get to give yourself permission. Like, what I think we've done in this industry is we've taken away personal preference and replaced it with pressure, right? It's like all about the pressure to hit a number, the pressure to hit a revenue number, the pressure to hit a revenue number. And I'm over here like, I'm totally not hitting that revenue number of like 100K months. But one, I'm profiting probably similar to that. And two, I fucking like what I'm doing and I love my days, right? So there's just like really something to be said for like, do you know what you really like? Do you know what you'd like your day to look like? And then how do you build your business model back from that place versus being like, and I did this to myself for a while, y'all, so no shame in that game, but I tried to do the, how can I love launching thing, right? And I'd try it in different ways and I'd play with it and I'd try to be like, well, maybe I'd like it if I did it like this, or maybe I'd like it if I did it like this. It's just not my thing, right? Like, listen, can I do it? Sure. Have I done it? Sure. Will I probably do it again in the future? Sure. But as far as like the core of like what I make money on in my business, it's just not what fits me, right? So the point is, why would I keep trying to fit myself into that box? This is how people burn out. This is how they stop liking what their business is, what they're doing, and they start making themselves really wrong because it's all about hitting this revenue mark that really has nothing to do with anything. And what I mean by that is like, depends. Like I have clients that have come to me making 10K revenue per month and literally not taking any home. I have clients that have come to me making 200K a year and taking home like 50, right? Like, and again, nothing's wrong per se with that, but like what I want you to know is like, whatever you're doing, you need to be making sure that you take home what you want to take home and design your business model around that and around what you want your day to look like, versus I have to fit into this box and then I have to maybe keep investing to fit into this box, right? Rita says, I'm going through my own struggle about my ideal model, and I was just talking about this to someone. So as always, got this message right when I needed it. Love it when that happens. Thank you guys for joining me. Hi, Safia. Okay, cool. So here's a case that somebody could make, which is that I would be making more if I spent more, right? So spending $5K on a $36K month, like a lot of people would be like, you're doing it all wrong. You should be spending at 50%. And if you were spending at 50%, you would be growing way faster. They're not wrong. Like, spoiler alert, they're not wrong. But, do I want to be growing faster? Or do I really like my day? Am I really happy with 31K take home cash? And will I scale when I decide how it, like, and I don't even want to say, will I just scale when I decide how it looks right for me? I already know how it looks, if that makes sense. Like, I think my one-on-one model is super scalable. I think my super intimate masterminds are scalable. Like, I have Happy Thoughts that's scalable in its own way. So it's like, I still have a scalability plan. I just don't have this super desire to fast forward it to hit some revenue number that I can brag about on the internet. Like, real talk, right? Like, I don't want to spend 50% right now. I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor and like love my fucking one-on-one clients every day. Like, I am really happy with that. And the reason I share that is because it's taken me a while to get there, where I can be like, this feels amazing and I'm so happy here, versus like, oh man, are people going to stop hiring me if I go online and tell them that I'm only making like 36K in a month? If they do, that's fine. But here's what I know for sure. I can think of 5 at least clients off the top of my head that are making more than me. That's okay too. Like, it's not that I can't support them at that. I think I'm amazing at supporting them like that, because these are the questions that I keep asking them. How are we profiting? How are we designing it to fit you? What is your next strategy? What's your next step that feels good? That kind of stuff, versus like, oh, you have to do it my way. I did it. And so now your only way to scale is to do it my way. I'm more like, how do we innovate? How do we get creative? What's next for you? What are we going to try? What are we going to test? What do you love? Right? So it's taken me such a long time to give myself permission to be like, here's where I'm at and I love it and I'm happy, versus like, oh, people are going to think something if I don't get to 50K cash next month or whatever. And certainly there's a possibility of that. Like I said, I'm just taking like a normal month of 36K as an example. But my point is, so often we're making these business model decisions based on what we see other people saying and what we think we have to do, and this like perceived goal that we have to get to. Do you guys agree with that? I would love to know, if you're listening, if you're watching, have you like felt that pressure and you almost don't even know where it's coming from, right? Like, you feel this pressure to like hit this amount, and then you like aren't even actually that connected to it. It's just pressure for the sake of pressure, right? What I really want is a sustainable business. Like, I am so clear on that's what I want. Like, I would be super happy if I made 36K revenue for the next 3 years and then, like jumped up past that or whatever. And I'm not saying that that's my goal. I'm just saying that I know myself well enough to know that I will be really happy and sustainable and, ready to keep growing doing that, versus if I try to fit myself into this box I hate and maybe make, more money doing it, it's not going to feel connected enough to me that I'm going to want to keep doing it. Like, I need to be doing shit that I like most of the time. Hint, that's why most of us left corporate, is because we wanted to stop doing shit we didn't like. You know what I mean? So this is that opportunity for you to be like, am I just connected to a number for the sake of like, because I keep hearing it all the time online? Or is there like this deep part of me that's really connected to it, right? Juliana says, totally, yes. It's just so easy, you guys. And I did this to myself for a while. So that's why I share this, not to like make you wrong, but to be like, it's tough when you're hearing that all the time. Like, I think it's like as soon as you even hit 6 figures, like, It's like 7 figures is the new 6 figures. And it's this whole thing. And like, again, I have clients making 7 figures. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It's fucking awesome. But it's awesome if it's an alignment for you. It's awesome if you're doing what you love all the time. It's awesome if it matches your lifestyle and your desires and all of that, right? It stops being awesome when it's just this thing that you feel like you have to chase, which is what we all did in other regards, right? I know all of you are like high performers, high achievers, right? We all did that chase shit I think I should chase thing. Like the degrees, the job, the credentials, the accolades, whatever, right? Did it get us what we wanted? No. That's why we're here. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to be so intentional about not doing that in this business, is not being like, when I hit 1 million, then I'll like get the entrepreneur gold star. Fuck that. I have the entrepreneur gold star right now. I took home 31K in cash and I'm happy and like actually like my day and I'm not doing shit I hate. Like that's the question for you. Does your business model make you happy? Are you doing very little shit that you really hate? And listen, to be clear, when I say shit you hate, I don't mean that it doesn't feel scary or hard or that you're not fearful around it sometimes. I just mean like a general, like, this is not where I thrive. This is not in alignment for me. Very different than like, I'm scared to go live or writing content feels hard because I don't see myself as an expert yet. Very different things. Just a side note. Sophia says 1,000%. Sarah says, I need to be doing shit that I like most of the time. Yeah, it's like a thing, right? Okay, cool. So the other thing that I really always try to think about here is, I really love this saying, and I don't totally remember where it came from, but my boyfriend said it to me recently, and I was like, that's genius. I'm using that all the time. Now, trust me, it wasn't him, but like, anyway, he said it to me, and I was like, oh my God, which is like, the grass is always greener on the other side, but you don't know what the water bill is. That is so perfect and so applicable to online business, which is like, the grass is greener on a 100K month, but what's the water bill on that? What's the time bill? What's the energy bill? And is all that worth it to you? Because if having your grass greener is worth an extra X amount on your water bill, you do you, boo. That's awesome. If it's not, then stop doing it, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, like, again, I'd much rather spend my day like with one-on-one clients than like creating, you know, teaching materials or like running a huge team or whatever. Like, I've run a huge team in the nonprofit world, and I really like parts of that, and parts of it are just, you know, not always like my jam. So like, again, like, am I willing to pay that water bill? Like, the truth is no, not at this moment, right? And maybe I will be down the road, but like, what I am willing to do is decide that my own grass is green enough. You know what I mean? So I think that's a really good conversation and a really good question to be asking yourself too, is like, am I just like idolizing this thing that I see? Am I asking myself what's behind it? Like, I idolize this green grass, but like, what's the water bill behind it? What's the upkeep? What's the energy requirement? What does that take, right? And if you want it bad enough that you're willing to put in the upkeep, put in the energy requirement, that's amazing. You should. If you want it bad enough, but you want to find a different way to get it and you want to find this innovative way to do it, cool, you should do that. The whole point is you have to ask yourself those questions and actually pay attention to the fact that more goes into it than like what appears, just like this whole conversation of like revenue versus profit versus cash versus sales. Do you actually know what's going into this? Or is it just this thing that you've built up in your head, right? So I would say like one of the questions is, what do you want to spend your day doing, right? If you're someone that loves creating teaching content and you love teaching and that's your thing, cool, you really may want to focus on courses, and that may really be your scalable model. If you're someone that loves one-on-one like me, cool, you may have to like give up that idea that the only way to scale online is to do courses and like really get inventive and creative, right? It's why I have my model where people pay me a base rate plus 10% of their revenue, because it's like a creative way to scale one-on-one. And because I've gotten so great at what I do over time that I know that's going to pay off for me, right? But like, that came with time. That came with testing and tweaking and figuring out what worked for me and what I like to spend my day doing. So that's one question. If you're listening, I would just love for you to comment, like, what do you love spending your day doing? Right? Like, it's crazy that we don't ask ourselves these things a lot, right? We leave corporate because we hate how we're spending our day. Then we come online and then we go, oh, there must be this like prescribed model that I have to follow. And so now I have to spend my day being miserable there too. It just doesn't make any fucking sense, right? The next question I would say is like, why do you want the revenue? What's the revenue you want? I may want to rephrase that. What's the profit you want? And why do you want it? And how do you get really connected? Like, again, for me, I feel super connected to like that 31K in profit. I know where it's going to go and what it's going to help me do and how I'm going to get what I want with it and stuff like that. Do I necessarily feel connected to like the idea of making $1 million in profit this year? I really don't yet. And that's okay, right? Like, will I at some point in my business? 1,000%. Will I at this moment? No. And so until I do, I'm not like going to grab at this thing that I don't even want yet. I'm going to enjoy where I am and let it grow. I said to one of my friends the other day, and I think it's so true, like the less I like stare at my business and like try to find what's wrong, the more it kind of just like grows and does its own thing on its own, right? And so that's another great point here, is like, are you making it wrong? So like, are you picking like, I have to hit this mark, and then you're making your business wrong the whole way? I think one of the gifts I've given myself is to stop making my desires, myself, my business wrong. And so it all kind of continues to grow pretty easily because I'm not always trying to find things wrong with it or holes in it, right? Rita says, it's killing me to say this because why am I not going all in on this? And you know, I'm not the only one asking me this. Speaking, that's what I spend my day on all day, every day. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good thing to know too. And like, Rita, I think the other thing is too, is like, you can apply that in so many ways. So maybe that means speaking in live streams way more. Maybe that means, you know, having your own event, whatever. It's just like, I think that we get so pigeonholed, like it has to look a certain way. So speaking has to be the thing, and then it only can look like being on stage at other people's events. Or like it can't even just be speaking, it has to be these other things, right? And so I think that's just such a beautiful realization, is like, this is what I would spend my day doing. So one, how do I start spending my day doing that now? And then two, how do I build my business in a way where that's more of the thing, right? So tell us, if you're watching now, watching the replay, what do you love to spend your day doing? It's such a simple question, and it's also one that we don't ask ourselves very often, right? Why do you want the revenue is huge. I'm like such a big believer in the woo-woo version of like money flows where it has a purpose, right? And so if you don't have a purpose or a connection to bringing in that next level of income, like it's going to be really hard to do it, because it becomes like this thing that we all do for the sake of being a high achiever, right? Like it becomes like I was saying earlier, like I felt like I had to make this certain amount of money so that I could like tell strangers on the internet. Well, shockingly, that's not actually all that motivating and doesn't really like get me up in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So we have to change that. You know, we have to really be connected to like, why do I want this profit? What's it about? What's it going to do for me? The other thing I want to say is stop expecting it to be perfect no matter what. What you want is not for it to be perfect. What you want is for it to be you. So do I think that my model is perfect? I really don't, truthfully. Like, I have much agreement with the idea that like if I was spending more, I could be making more revenue. I think that some of the downfalls of being super one-on-one focused are that I really have times I need to be places, right? It's like a little bit less free where like I could, you know, work at 11 o'clock at night. Like, yeah, I can answer my clients then or whatever, but like the point is like there are some downfalls to it. I'm a little more tied into times. I definitely, you know, I think can, you know, have that cap where like if I don't spend more, there could be lack of growth. Like the point is that it's not perfect, but it's me and it fits and it feels the best and it feels good and it feels awesome most days, right? And I would say that's true with anything in your life. Like if you think about like your best friend or your partner or great relationships that you have, or even like, you know, things that you love in your life, like your wardrobe or like, I don't know, your dog, like none of it is perfect. It's just best and what feels good, right? Like Your partner may not be perfect, but they're just like, what is best for you? Your friendship may have its rocky points from time to time. It's not perfect, but it's like what fits you. So that's really something I would give yourself permission with in this business too, where I think everybody's trying to find that perfect thing. Like, so for me, if I was like, oh, this still isn't perfect, which it's not, of course, but then making it wrong. So like there are these couple holes where like I'm still a little bit locked into time, and you know, I could be spending more and whatever. I would just be making myself crazy. You're never going to find that perfect thing. Just like if you're making 100K, the thing that's not perfect is you're probably spending a boatload of money to get there. Like, but it's never going to be perfect. You're not going to find that model where you make 100K and spend $100. You know what I mean? So important to give yourself that permission to be like, it's not going to be perfect, but it has to be pleasurable. It has to be me, and it has to really fit. Because that's when you're going to actually scale it. That's when you're going to love it. That's when you're going to be able to lean all the way into it. Until then, it just is that thing where you're not connected and you're just making yourself wrong all the time. Kelsey says, I love one-on-one, and I am working on launching a group program, which I'm so excited about. Totally. I love that. I mean, like, again, the more you know what you love doing day to day, the easier it is to actually build your business. It's just true. I think there's such like a misconception in entrepreneur land that like you should be miserable for a period of time to get this end result. And I think it's definitely like you should work hard for a period of time. So don't get me wrong on that. Like I definitely put in the effort. I still put in the effort. But like I never want to be miserable in any of it. Like I am not about super delayed gratification as it relates to this, because I could just be in corporate and have 50 years of delayed gratification. Like I at least want to feel good most of the time. I at least want to feel like I'm doing shit I like most of the time. Does it require a ton of mindset work to push through the fear around some of it? Sure. But it's got to feel good, right? Sarah says yes to not making it wrong, because you can always shift and scale when it stops feeling good. 100%. I feel like people always put the pressure on themselves to have it figured out until the end of time. But you'll change, and what you want out of your business will change, and that's okay. I could not agree with that more, right? Rita says you understand that is also relationship advice, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be you, and it has to fit, and it has to feel good. Amen. Yes, always applicable across the board, right? Like if you're ever stuck on something in business, try to make it applicable to relationships, and you'll probably find your answer, because they're so parallel, right? But yeah, like this is that call to like, what do you like? What do you want to do? Like what profit is important to you? And how hard do you want to work for that? I think that's another really, really, really important conversation that we're not all having, is like, I'm not saying like it all requires hard work. I'm definitely not like, oh, you have to put in, 100 hours a week if you really want it. But I do think that there are times where we're like, priority number one for me is being a mom. Priority number two is my business. But I feel like I should be making 100K months in like no time at all. And it's just like the pressure of like, but why? Because you know what your priority is. Like, are you happy most days? Are you living into that purpose? Do you know what that profit that you really want is? Are you connected to it? Do you know why you really want it? Like all of that foundational stuff that seems like, yeah, I'll figure that out later. I just need to make money, is like, that's why you're getting stuck and not making money, truthfully, is because you're not building a business model that you like. You're building a business model that you think you should build, and you're setting goals that you think you should have. And you're doing the exact same thing that you did in corporate, which is like follow the path, buy into someone else's goal, follow someone else's template. Like fuck all that shit, right? That's why we left. This has to be about like what works for you. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be you. What would you spend your day doing? What profit do you want? Are you actually paying attention to profit in your business? I mean, I see so many people that are chasing this thing that aren't even paying attention to profit. Like I said, I've had clients come to me making a lot of money and taking almost none of it home because they weren't paying attention to profit. They were paying attention to like this revenue goal that they thought they should hit so they could tell strangers on the internet. Again, no judgment. Been there, done that. It sucks, right? We all get there. But the point is, it's not what's going to continue to grow your business. For sure, invest. For sure, have big goals. For sure, ask yourself, what those big goals are. But like, you got to reap the rewards of them sometimes, and it has to feel good along the way. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was a helpful conversation about looking at profit, looking at what works for you. Again, I think the thing I want to say here the most is like, you get to design this. If you want to make 100K and you're like willing to spend what it takes to get there, and that's how you want to spend your day, that is amazing. Again, I have plenty of clients doing that feel great doing that. For me, that's not what feels good. So if you want to not do that, that's okay too, right? Either way is permission. I think we have to stop making each other wrong in this industry. Like, I just see so many posts that are like, this is the way, you're wrong if you think about it like this, you're wrong if you think about success like that. Like, none of it is wrong. All of it comes down to the question of, does it fit you? Does it feel good? Is it something that you want to do long-term, and are you getting the results and profit that you want from it, right? Because if you're chasing 100K, but you're not getting the profit from that, like, does that feel good? Probably not. Is it going to feel good when you get to 100K? Probably not. You know, it's sort of like the whole, when you get the dream job, is it going to feel good? Probably not. Mine sure as shit didn't, right? It's got to feel good along the way. It's got to fit you, and we have to stop making whatever fits everyone else wrong. Like, I was thinking about sharing this, and luckily, you know, I'm 3 years into my business now, so I kind of don't give a shit as much as I used to, simply because I'm more grounded in what I know is true for me. But I was kind of like, gosh, like, I think it's going to be really interesting to share, like, this is my revenue, this is my profit for a month. Like, I wonder if people are going to be like, oh my God, she should be making so much more than that. And like, for me, if someone's thinking that, I think it's just because they're still in that narrow-minded philosophy of, it should look this way, it has to be this way, success only looks like this, that kind of thing. And that's the underlying conversation of all this that I want to change, which is like, we all need to take that, like, you do you, boo attitude, because the more we can do that, the more we all get to thrive. The more we spend time making ourselves wrong, making other women wrong, making the way they build businesses wrong, the more time we're just absolutely wasting, and the less happy we're going to be, right? So find out what lights you up, because it's there and you know what it is already. I guarantee you do. If you don't think you do, I bet I could help you figure it out in 10 minutes, you know, because it's there. And then really ask yourself, like, how can you build your business model like that? If you took away all the preconceived notions of like, this is how it has to be, this is what I have to do. And if you really kind of work backwards from that place, it's going to be so much easier. So if you're watching now, watching the replay, I would love to know, what do you love to spend your day doing? I would love to know if you have any questions. Super happy to share more specifics if you guys have any other questions about what my business model looks like. But yeah, well, I guess I maybe didn't share all of that. Let me just share a moment of that, which is, so my business model is primarily built on one-on-one. My clients pay me a base rate plus 10% of the revenue they generate. I really love that model because I like that, you know, I like that we get to make money together, right? That's really important to me, is like, you know, I don't just want to, you know, charge you 10K. I want to help you make it, right? It's also a really scalable model, because obviously the more my clients make, the more I make. That's super awesome. I do intensives, so I do a lot of one-on-one intensives. I sell quite a few of those a month. I do retreats, I do mini masterminds, and I do I have like a lot of repeat clients and do some different offers for them. I have I have like 4 DIY products. So it's heavily one-on-one focused. Like, I have like the mini masterminds, I do the retreats, that kind of thing. But, you know, truthfully, like, you get to build the model you want, is my whole point in sharing that. Of like, I don't think anybody has my business model in this arena, and that's okay. It's just, again, what works for me. So be willing to think outside of the box on what works for you. You don't have to like use someone else's, right? Maybe you take inspiration from different people's and then you figure it out. But it's also taken me a lot of time to figure that out. Like, I probably really nailed that in early this year, like January of this year, I think, is when I changed to my price sharing model. probably January. So it's taken me experimentation over time, which is something else here, which is like you get to experiment with it. You get to figure out what works for you, like Sarah was saying, and not know forever, but test and tweak it along the way. I'm sure I will change this at some point, but it's not someone else's business model. It's like Lacey's business model based on her needs and desires and personality and all of that. So figure out what yours is. If you don't know, get a coach that wants to help you figure out what yours is, not somebody that wants you to do theirs. That is not how you're going to be happy. That's how you're going to burn out. So let me know if you have questions around this. Again, happy to share more. Hope that was helpful to add that little last part at the end. But like, tell me, like, what's your business model? What do you love? What do you want to be doing more of? Because the faster you answer that question, the faster your business is going to grow. I promise you. And the faster you're actually going to make bank because you're going to like it and you're going to be clear on it and you're going to know profit-wise what you need versus chasing this revenue number, right? So again, look at your profit, look at what you want, because this is going to help so much. So I love you guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Diane. I'm so glad you thought it was great. Yes, Juliana, I'll talk to you in just a few. And I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. Let me know if you have questions and enjoy your week. Bye, y'all.